You are listening to Stump the Pastor, the show where you, the listener, send us your Bible-related questions, and we attempt to answer them for you. I'm your host, Pastor Ellis Wedel, and today in the studio I have with me my friends, Adam Hrankowski.
Guten Tag.
And Matt Wedel.
Hello.
This guy has no shortage of languages to go to, I can tell you. So, last week we offended a bunch of people. Well, I'm not sure actually, but we're going to offend some more this week.
I cried for a week.
So we're talking about Christmas stuff, right? And so we told the story about that there was no room in the inn, and said that that translation of inn is really more accurately translated according to other verses that use the same word as guest house or home.
But there was no room because they were all there for the Boxing Day sale.
Well, yeah,
the next
day. That's right. So they weren't. It doesn't typically they wouldn't have been in a stable. They would have been in somebody's home. But all the same, we talked about that last week, so we won't go over it again.
Okay.
This week we're going to talk about the three kings of Orient.
Those three kings of Orient
are. Yes. And here goes Adam to sing the song for us. Thank you, Adam.
We three kings of Orient are. See, you're putting me up for this, but you know.
Yeah, no, it's okay. You don't have to sing
Okay.
it. Most people have heard the song before. This is how it goes. We three kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we traverse afar.
They traverse.
Traverse. That's good old English.
Good old, yeah. They spoke old English.
Field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star.
That's right.
Probably written in 1857.
Okay.
But not appearing in print until 1863. This famous Christmas carol was written by John Henry Hopkins, who became a priest in the Episcopal Church.
Episcopal.
It was the featured song in a Christmas pageant that he organized, and Reverend Hopkins was able to write the lyrics and a tune that has captured the text of Scripture so well. Right?
Wow.
What a wonderful carol.
Those three kings.
Three kings. Yeah, so the opening line to this hymn, we have three questions. We three. First question we want to ask is, was there three?
Well, yeah, because I try to find a nativity scene with four kings. You can't. They all have three, so it's attested very well.
You cannot argue with that kind of logic.
You can't argue with that logic.
Actually,
and
any of the nativity scenes that I've seen only have one king.
Really?
I've only seen three.
I think
Jesus.
Oh,
okay.
It's man. Give
yeah,
that
there you
cigar.
go. That's why he doesn't talk much in this show.
That's right. No, but seriously, there's three kings.
Yep.
And we know what their names are.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
They have camels. One of them is black. Always.
Yes. And you know what their name? Do you know what their names are?
Was it Melchior? Belshazzar? No, Belshazzar is something else.
Yep.
You got it here. You got it
Belshazzar.
here.
Yeah,
Belshazzar.
Yep.
Okay.
And then Caspar.
Gaspar. Gaspar. Right.
Yeah.
The friendly king.
Yes. Yeah. So one of them supposedly from Arabia.
Okay.
One of them supposedly from Persia, and one supposedly from India.
Okay.
Okay, one second. Were those names for the kings, quotations, or for the camels?
No, those were the kings.
Those are the
Okay.
kings.
Names, yeah.
And I'm just speculating out of the top of my head. I have no research to support this, but where did that tradition come from? That they're from these different spots? Are we trying to say that we have all these Gentiles from the different areas, all the different parts of the world?
Well, we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
So, I can tell you right now if you want.
Sure.
So they're known as kings because of the Christmas carol, but Church Father Tertullian died in AD 225 and referred to them as kings as well. We don't know why for certain that he believed that.
Okay.
But regardless, in Daniel 2, the Greek word for magi is used to translate a Hebrew term that meant astrologer, right? Just a minute here. That's not what I was going to tell you. I was going to tell you this. Three ancient documents mention some details about the three kings.
Okay.
The Aramean infancy gospel.
Yep.
Or the Armenian, infancy gospel, which was written around AD 600, mentions three names, and that's the three names that they give them. The second document was a Greek text written in Alexandria in Egypt around AD 500.
Okay.
And the translation into Latin includes these names as well.
Oh, okay.
And then some people have proposed that these are legitimate texts on which to base these conclusion. But there is another document many people aren't familiar with called the Revelation of the Magi.
Okay.
And this document was written in the 8th century in Syriac, and it was kept in the Vatican Library for many years and was recently translated into English. The translator believes the text goes back to a mid-2nd century document, and it was written as if the wise men themselves were writing this book. While it's not a reliable source for interpreting Scripture, it has some interesting details regarding the wise men. So that's basically where we get that idea from. Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm imagining here, though. Okay, 3 wise men, possibly because there were gold, frankincense, and myrrh. There were 3 gifts. Okay, because I'm supposing that 3 rich people with a bunch of really expensive stuff. Right, I'm trying to imagine them getting on their camels.
Yep.
Just the 3 of them.
Yep.
Okay, and traveling this distance. Okay, and then we know later on in the story they're warned in a dream to take a shortcut. Right.
Yep.
Now we're in Prince George.
Yep.
Okay, if there were to be 3 kings or 3 people on camels going down the the street, the library, under the clock and all that, people would probably notice the camels and all that, right?
Yep.
Okay, but I'm wondering, similar to the argument I made last week about the star, I'm wondering really how worried 3 people would be about being noticed. And I suspect that we had a whole entourage.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the arguments we're going to bring up.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Okay.
So the 3 questions that we're looking at is, first of all, were there 3? Were they kings? And thirdly, were they from the Orient?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we 3 kings from Orient are. We're going to see what those 3 things. So Matthew 2, 1-12. Do you want to read that? That doesn't have a whole bunch of bad names for you.
Yeah,
so.
okay. I can do this.
So this is about the wise men.
Okay. So this is from the Bible.
Yes.
Matthew chapter 2, verses 1-12 from the English Standard Version. Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. I'm just going to make a little comment. Sometimes if you hear the older versions, and this is an example where people all think in King James English.
Yeah.
Right? They said, we saw his star in the east. Okay. This is, we saw his star when it rose. We're dealing with just different ways of translating it. Were they in the east? You're going to get to that.
Right.
Was the star in the east? This translator is saying in the east means when it rose.
Right.
Okay. So we saw his star when it rose and came to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet. And you, and here we have a quote, And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. And what they're quoting there is Micah chapter 5:12, I think.
Yep. I think so too. Yep.
Yeah. And if you were to read that text, it says, and his goings forth are from ancient times, which is a hint to the pre-existence of Jesus. Jesus existed before he was born. We have an allusion to that. Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word that I may come and worship him. After listening to the king, they went on their way. And behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then, opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way.
Okay, so that's all the information that we have about these guys.
That's it.
That's it. And so let's start looking at some of this. I mentioned before about this last book called the Revelation of the Magi, and it is not one that we put a whole lot of stock into. But this is some of the things that it said with regard to the wise men. First, it characterizes the Magi. What characterizes the Magi, according to this book, is that they pray in silence, which is very abnormal during this time period. Most people prayed out loud. Okay. Secondly, they say in that book that there were 12 or more wise men, maybe even 40 or 50 in the group. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then thirdly, they say that they were from Shire, not the Shire. They weren't back in with the Hobbit.
Okay.
But from Shire, possibly a reference to China.
Okay.
Fourth, they were descendants of Seth, Adam and Eve's third son. And being descendants of Seth, they had knowledge of an old prophecy passed down by word of mouth about a star that would appear proclaiming that God would come in human form. Those are some salient points from the revelation of the Magi, which we consider to be an unreliable source for interpreting New Testament texts, and probably doesn't.
But it's an idea. But you know what? I think a lot of people are descended from Seth.
Yes,
just
I think
saying.
so too. Yes, I agree.
Okay.
So all the theories and traditions advocating that there were 3 wise men are late and unreliable documents.
Okay.
An alternate tradition states that there were at least 12, but there wasn't a uniform tradition throughout church history as to how many and where. Today, as you said, most people get that just because there was 3 gifts. They figured it must have been 3 of them. Mm-hmm. But it's very unlikely that they would be traveling, like you say, with the kind of gifts that they had, because in those days, that would be the equivalent of millions of dollars, a lot of money. That they're carrying around on camels, just the 3 of them. If it was only
just
3,
the 3 of them,
right?
Yeah. No flashlights,
right? And these guys aren't they're not like ninjas. They're supposed to be wise men, right?
They're wise men. That's right.
So yeah, it was highly unlikely. Then were these ninjas. Were these men kings, magi, or wise men? Right? They were referred to as all 3 of these things.
Okay.
So this is where I started reading here about Tertullian. He died in AD 225, and he referred to them as kings. We don't know why he did that. Regardless, in Daniel 2, the Greek word for magi, as I said before, is translated as astrologer in Daniel 2:2. Several hundred years before the New Testament, magi referred to astrologers, but words can change in meaning over time. So it doesn't necessarily mean because it was astrologer then that it means astrologer later. And then by the time of the New Testament, magi, it's considered, were most likely non-Jewish. This is what, if you said this guy's a magi, this is what most people would be thinking. They would be thinking they're non-Jewish.
Yep.
They're religious, and they're possibly priestly.
Right. Okay.
They were skilled in several areas, including astronomy, astrology, dream interpretation, fortune telling, and magic or divination. Now, before everybody goes, how could these guys be at the birth of Jesus, right? Terrible, occult people. We have a lot of people in the Bible that were also very good at some of these things, right? So, and very well-known people.
Now, and to distinguish it from astrology, well, maybe what they did was astrology. Who knows, right? Okay. But what I'm talking about here is we have God, when he creates the heavens and the earth in Genesis, and he puts these things in the sky, and he says, these things are going to be for signs and seasons.
Yep.
And really, because of the kind of calendar that the ancient Hebrews used, when it says a date, and it says, do this on this day of this month, he's basically saying, when you see the new moon in the constellation Virgo, I want you to celebrate this holiday.
Yeah.
And when you see the full moon here, I want you to celebrate this holiday. That was the clock. That was God's timepiece. Okay, but the Hebrews understood it as God is telling us what's going on, and he's putting up a sign to tell us what he's doing. Whereas astrology, in the modern sense, well, in the modern sense, it's a popular thing. I mean, it's people don't even do it seriously. I mean, people do it seriously, but I mean, there's a popular astrology, the thing that you read. Okay, but it's the idea that the planets influence. Okay, that's okay. So let's look up at the stars and see. Hey, let's see what is going to happen to you because you are governed by this particular planet because that's when you were born. And so astrology talks that way. Okay, so I think we can talk about things in the heavens as signs of what God
Right.
what God was doing, and I think that these people, they may have had more of the astrology kind of view, but that may have been only incidental. They may have seen things in the heavens that God was going to do.
Yeah, and so even when we talk about this, astronomy is more what they would be doing.
Astronomy.
But and so we have this. They could be astronomers. They could be astrologers. They could be dream interpretation. Could be force. All of these things are could be's. They're not that they were all of them, right?
Yeah.
So this is what characterized the Magi. All of these things. So the Magi in Matthew 2. We would think are likely. Now you mentioned something about this earlier in the show last week.
Yep.
But most scholars today, latest news would say that the Magi in Matthew 2 are likely not Jewish, since they were ignorant of the Old Testament scriptures. They had to come and ask for what did the scriptures say, right? So you mentioned last week, though, that maybe they knew a little bit because of where they came from.
If they had come from what was at the time, Babylon, okay, with that area, and what is now, what later became Persia, what probably would at that time been, considered Persia.
Yeah.
In fact, I've heard it argued that don't remember which kind of conquest this was, but in the Holy Land, Persian armies not leaving the Church of the Nativity alone. In Bethlehem, because there's pictures of the Magi there, and they saw them dressed in Persian,
right.
Persian clothes,
which there is to this day.
It's still there. So where was it going with this?
Oh, we're talking about them.
The Magi. Daniel. That's
right.
So I mean, if Daniel was a magus, possibly.
Yeah.
Because he was one of the wise men. He was one of the wise men in the book of Daniel. It's quite possible that they had passed on a tradition from Daniel as to the general time when the Messiah would have been born. And they may have believed that, yes, there's going to be a king who's going to be king over the whole world. And he, according to Daniel, because you can read in Daniel chapter 9, that pinpoints when the Messiah will be born. It's actually quite amazing.
Yep.
It pinpoints at least to the century, depending on how you read it. So they could have been basing it on that. We don't know how much they knew. They weren't Jewish. They didn't have all the scriptures. They didn't have all the traditions.
Yeah.
But they could have known that there was going to be a king who would be a king of the world, born at that time that they were living.
Right.
And in that neighborhood.
Yeah. So what we do know about them is that they appear to be religious scholars, skilled in astronomy. Okay?
Sure.
We seem to know, at least we pick that up from the Bible.
At least astronomy. Yeah.
They had some dreams while they were visiting Jesus. So they were apparently skilled in dream interpretation. Because generally it wouldn't be a dream that was so blatant that it was just like, written on there, get out of town or whatever. They probably interpreted the stars to indicate that there was a great Jewish king about to be born. Mm-hmm. And New Testament scholar Craig Bloomberg says they combined astronomical observation with astrological speculation. If that makes any sense.
You know what? I that makes a lot of sense to me, because even when we make the distinction, where are the astronomers? Where are the astrologers? They don't do like we do nowadays, where we go, this is science,
right,
and this is spiritual stuff. They had, I mean, they combined them. They didn't make that distinction.
Right.
I don't think in those days. In fact, I think it's only fairly recently in North America that we sort of have this idea of pure science that has no spirituality in it.
Right. Which is sometimes what we do in church even, right? We separate our secular life, our work life, from our church life. We do that on Sunday. We do other stuff on the weekday.
Well said.
Never the two will be come together, right? So what we do know, though, is that they weren't kings. Okay, so the we three kings thing is not the case. And the three is probably not the case either. So let's look at the last thing. Were they from the Orient? And that's what we've been kind of skirting around here, talking about a little bit. The answer could depend on what you mean by the Orient. Because when we think the word Orient, what do we think, generally?
Well, China.
China, that's what we generally think, right? So now, years ago, that word referred to anywhere east of the Mediterranean.
Okay.
And like we just said, now it typically refers to East Asia or China, near China. If the latter definition is meant, so if it's China, then the answer is probably no, they didn't come from there.
Okay.
However, they were from an area east of Israel. And given that astronomy is prevalent in Persia,
Okay.
and that it seems to have played a role in leading the wise men to Israel, perhaps a case can be made that the wise men did come from Persia.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now, that's not saying they did, but it's saying an argument could be made for that.
Well, Orient, it can, you got the word orientation.
Yes.
Right? Because nowadays, we look at the compass because we've got a compass and we go to the north. But previously, they looked to the east to figure out where you were.
Right.
Right? So to become orientated means figuring out where east is. So orient means east, which is a broad
broad term, right?
broad enough to include Persia.
Right.
Yeah.
But let me throw this in there.
Okay.
The three gifts that they brought, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, connect them with Arabia, which is generally where those kinds of gifts would be coming from or would come from. Since they appear to know something about Judaism, maybe there was a community of Jews in their homeland who supplied them with Old Testament passages, which is what you're talking about here with Daniel, because we see, like in Numbers 24, verse 17, it talks a little bit about some of that, that led them to read the stars as pointing to the birth of a Jewish king. That would point to Babylon as their origin, probably.
Okay.
In the end, we can't be certain, but I think Babylon and Arabia are probably the most likely places that they would have come from.
One thing I'm sure of is I don't know.
Right, exactly.
but it's fun to imagine, fun to talk about.
The one thing we do know is that the journey would have probably taken several months from deciding when they wanted to go to getting the supplies together to making this very long journey. Okay, and there may have been 3 wise men. There may have been 30. They weren't kings, but astronomers or astrologers or dream interpreters, and they were from the east. But the term Orient is kind of misleading because it's not China.
It's not China.
It's somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, there you go. The song is not that accurate.
It's a nice song.
It's a nice song.
It's
yes,
a nice
song.
Don't diss the song.
Okay. Okay.
I sang it when I was like in grade 6.
Yes,
okay?
it's a good song. There's no doubt about it.
We stood up and I got to sing the gold song.
Oh, yeah. I was always one of the shepherds or one of the wise men.
To crown him again.
In the nativity scene, I was always one of the 3. So I don't know, whatever. You had some more stuff you want to talk about?
I was always an angel in the nativity scene.
Or
apparently, they like to make me sing.
Oh wow!
You're an angel?
I was an angel.
You're an angel. My son was Joseph last year. He said it's very boring because Joseph doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Because it's childbirth. Just get out of the way.
You should at least let him go to a waiting room and watch TV or something.
That's right. Go on Facebook or something. Yeah. Okay.
So you have some stuff you want to share.
Okay.
Okay.
The date.
The
date. Because
date.
Last week, I said that Jesus was born on a Sunday because I went to the calendar and December 25th.
Yes.
Of December 25th of 180 was a Sunday, which of course I was being a little facetious. One of the things we know about December 25th that we can be pretty sure about is it probably wasn't that day that he was born, because that day was chosen for
a couple of reasons.
For a couple of reasons.
But it's not. But before you go any further, there are a couple of things that lead to the point that it could be.
Okay.
Because I've even read this in history now that that one of the arguments against that date was always that shepherds wouldn't be in the field at that day. Mm-hmm. That's not true. According to what we hear now, they would say that no, shepherds would have been in the field. In fact, this is a time of year when they would have needed to have animals for one of the festivals that would be going on during that time of year, and they would have needed to have some animals around there to be able to do the sacrifices that were there. So there would have been shepherds there with their animals to be able to do that.
But would they have been in the fields, or would they have been? We don't know.
Well, we don't know. That's right.
You know what? It's cold there now, but 2,000 years ago, who knows what the weather was like?
Yeah.
Who knows what okay. But lots of things we could say. Lots of things we could say about the date. Okay. Yeah. There's the very, very popularly thought that the date was chosen because there was festivities already going on at the time. There was the Saturnalia, which went from the 17th to the 24th, and that may have also been the day of the birth of the sun god. And so the Christians, this is the way the argument goes, is that the Christians chose that day, just like you see lots of times now in churches, where they go, hey, let's do something on Halloween, let's do something on October 31st, because we don't do Halloween, so come to our church and dunk apples here and wear costumes, but don't wear the devil costume.
It'll be the harvest fair instead.
Harvest fair instead. So that's one of the that's one of the ideas. Okay, but there's been a few days suggested, but there's an argument from the book of Luke. We know that Jesus was born 6 months after John the Baptist, and John the Baptist was born 9 months after Zechariah was in the temple, and he had the vision of, in which he was told that he would get his wife would give birth. Yep. So in Luke chapter 1 verse 5, in the days of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah of the division of Abijah, and he had a wife from the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. So the argument goes, it looks at the 12 divisions, I think it is 12 divisions of priesthood, and it places, based on that, when they would be doing their rotation in the temple, it places the date of John the Baptist's birth from that, this argument. Won't go into all the details. And then from that, 6 months later, you have Jesus possibly born around September, okay, which matches the Jewish Feast of Tabernacles, or also the Jewish New Year, or Yom Teruah. It's a holiday season. It's a holiday season. Would have been an appropriate time for him to be born, especially during the Feast of Tabernacles, when John says that the Word became flesh and tabernacled among us. So there may be a hint going in there. And also in the book I referred to last time, The Star That Astonished, what was it called? I got to go here. The Star That Astonished the World by Ernest Martin. He makes an interesting argument. He quotes Revelation chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. Then a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and with the moon under her feet. On her head was a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was screaming in labor pains, struggling to give birth. Okay. Now it's interesting because in Roman Catholic theology, this is traditionally Mary, and I've seen statues of her actually with the stars over her head, depicted as Mary. Now, what's interesting is, and I mentioned earlier that the dates for the Jewish festivals, they're basically when you see the moon in this constellation. Okay. Well, again, I went to my planetarium software and I rolled back to the date that I think we're talking about, and you can see there's the sun. The sun is setting near in the constellation Virgo. Okay, with the crescent moon, right near her feet, and I'm wondering here is if this vision is an allusion not only to the birth of Christ, but also to the date when this would have been around the Feast of Tabernacles, actually 2 weeks prior, the Feast of Yom Teruah or Rosh Hashanah. Is this a hint as to when he was born?
Well, that's interesting speculation.
The only thing that I could say for sure is, I don't know.
Maybe.
Definitely maybe.
A definite maybe we got today.
A definite maybe. We have a definite maybe.
Okay, so that's about as good as we get around here is definite maybe.
That's right.
So no, that's awesome. If it was the case, that is a lot of work that God put into making sure everything went
a lot of work, just planning all those plans and all that. Okay, but what do we know for sure about the Nativity? What do we know for sure about? We know what it means.
We know what it means. That's absolutely right. And we know that out of all of this, regardless of where it happened, regardless of who was there, the one person we do know was there was Jesus, and that is the reason that we do all of this in the first place, right? So, absolutely. Do we have time to do anything else? So then we don't. So off we go. This is the end of our show. We want to thank you for joining with us today. And be sure to tune in next Sunday at 8:30 for Stump the Pastor. If you have a question about the Bible or Christianity, please send it into my email, which is pastorwedel, Wedel, @outlook.com. If your question is chosen to go on the air, you'll receive a free gift, compliments of Heartland Baptist Church and CFIS-FM. Until next time, may God richly bless you, and so long.
I've run out of
Take care.
languages. Bye-bye.